All right, guys, let's get started with testing out this whole drawing course online with how to practice drawing an eye. Now we're going to be practicing how to draw a very simple eye, and I hope that over the next couple times we will practice drawing progressively more complicated eyes. But for the purposes of today and our first stab at it, we're going to start with something easy. So when starting to draw an eye, first of all, I'll talk about my supplies. Really easy, you guys. It's just copy paper that I'm drawing on today, and I'm using an HB pencil. Mechanical is the one I'm using, but if you just have a standard pencil, that will work also. You just might have to sharpen it a couple times to keep the point nice and sharp. But if you have a sketch pad too, that works. Doesn't really matter. We're just keeping it really easy today. So to start with drawing an eye, I'm going to start with drawing it like a half almond shape. So I'm going to do in the middle of my paper a nice big curve, and you can see it kind of looks like a half almond shape right there. Now, depending on the person's eye shape, this will change. So even though I'm saying half an almond shape, not everyone's eye is the half almond shape exactly. This is just a good way to start. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a full circle. Now, you do not see a full circle on people's eyes. Typically you have at least the top or the bottom cut off, and sometimes both. It depends what's going on in the face. Sometimes when people draw eyes for the very first time, they will draw the eye kind of like this. They'll do a nice big circle and then a really harsh outline and then a really harsh outline. That, first of all, makes them look like they're super surprised. And this really harsh outline just comes across a little bit too cartoony for what we're doing, so not doing that. So what I've done here is I've done the half almond shape, and I've drawn my whole circle, and I've actually extended the top part of the eye over that lid line, which is this top of the almond shape. That's the lid line. I've drawn over it. The reason I did that is because it kind of gave me a good idea if I've drawn a full circle. And once I've established, yes, I kind of like my circle, it looks pretty good, I will be getting rid of it. So don't draw that top part very dark because it will be going away. Speaking of going away, making mine go away. Okay, now the next part comes in is the sides. Now everyone's eye shape is very different, so the shape of the side pieces here will be very different depending on the person that you're drawing. Now the reference that I'm using, the corners are quite small. So I've drawn that initial shape, but now I'm going to start shaving it down. So it just touches the bottom of the eye here, and it comes up right about there. So I'm going to get rid of my extra. And the same thing over here as well. I actually think this goes up a little bit, so I might erase a little. And it just touches the bottom and comes over here. Now, something I've been talking a little bit in drawing class, and I really drive it home in portraits, is you really need to start paying attention to hard lines versus soft lines. So what I mean by that is sometimes with portraits, a hard line is just like it sounds, a hard, heavy line. A soft line is one that can still be appearing like a line, but it's shaded. So the appearance of it is very, very soft. And depending on how many times I'd go over this, I'd go over it, I'd go over it, go over it, go over it, go over it, it can start to look like it's kind of like a line, but it's so, so soft. And portraits have this happen a lot, even with darker shades, which I know we've been practicing this in our drawing class, is how to make soft edges. So even if I went in really deep, do you see how I'm sort of softening the edges? And all of a sudden it's a very, very soft line. That happens a lot in portraits, but in drawing in general. Now for today, mine's gonna be very easy because it's gonna be a bit blocky, but keep that in mind as we go along and we start doing more complex shading, we're gonna have to do more soft lines. So I have my outer line, I have my shape of my eye overall, and I'm pretty happy with it. Now we'll start talking about how to draw the inside. So when I talk about the eyes, and a good way to remember them is think about 3 circles. So circle 1 is the outer perimeter circle. That's 1. 2 is going to be that one smack dab in the middle, which is called a pupil. So a pupil goes right about in the middle. And then 3rd is always going to be a highlight. Now, this reference that I'm drawing from actually has another highlight, so technically this is 4. But I always say at least the 3 because you always need at least one highlight. Eyes are glossy, so they're always going to have at least a highlight. Depending on where your light source is coming from, what's happening with the lights, there will be more or less, and the pattern can be different. So this is just for an exercise, but always pay attention to see where your highlight is. Okay, so I've drawn my outer perimeter circle, which is 1, my pupil, which is 2, and 3, I'm gonna count that one in as my highlight. So now I have all that set up. Now we're gonna talk about shading. So typically speaking, your lid, which is up here, that very top one, this one's can be my hard line. So I'm actually gonna go back into it and I'm going to make a very dark, thicker line. That lid line actually casts a little bit of a shadow. So in this reference, it actually cuts sort of off right about in the middle of the eye, approximately. So here to here is kind of a nice medium shade. So I'm going to take my pencil, keep your line close together. Scribbling won't quite do. And you're going to fill in this top half of the eye. Now, lots of things change with shading depending on the person's color of their eye. If they have blue eyes versus brown eyes, even within the shadow, the blue eyes will be lighter. And then of course it just depends generically on your lighting. Okay, now the pupil can get filled in as dark as you can go. So fill in that pupil nice and dark. Okay. Now, there are lots of lovely shapes down in here, which is called the iris. So the actual full eye, this part in here that retains the color, that's called your iris. There are lots of lovely shapes in here to draw, but that's going to be more in the realistic part. But for today, it does need a little bit of shading. So hold your pencil at the end, and the reason to do that is if you have trouble at all with your pressure control, which I know I've been practicing a lot with you guys, if you hold your pencil further back, you have the ability to apply less pressure, and it's easier to do so. So go ahead and shade it in. It should be lighter than the top half. And then because I'm not done, I'm gonna go back up to the tippy top, and I'm gonna add a bit more shadow at the very top. And now here's a little bit of blending, you guys, pressure control. I made it really dark at the top, but then I am slowly coming down from that a little bit lighter. Over here too, really dark, and then come down soft. Okay, so I like that so far, so let's start talking about the rest of it. So I did tell you that the edges should be soft, but like I said, this exercise is easy, so I've kind of just completely blown that out of the water. I'm gonna do a harsh outline over here and connect my eye. And in the reference that I'm using, the artist has a harsh outline all the way. So when you look at someone's eye, make everyone look at your eyes, go to the mirror, look. There is this little area right here. This is where, so here's your eye. This little pocket down here is where lashes would come out of. So if you go look in a mirror, that's what this is. And when you're drawing portraits, especially more realistic, but even this guy, you need to add that in. Otherwise it looks weird. I'm gonna make the top of my lid, looks like they make it a little bit thicker, and then I add in some very harsh, thick lashes. Like I said, I would never do this for a realistic one, but this works great for just beginning, making it easy. Now I'm gonna go back in, I'm gonna fill them in nice and dark. Okay, now over here. I made this a little bit big, and what I'm gonna do now is this inside corner here, you have to imagine, so this is my person's eye. This would be the right eye, so the nose would be right in here. This would be the noses. So this part of the eye is where your tear duct is. So the tear duct is just usually marked out a little bit. So I'm gonna put myself like a V in there because that's where the tear duct is. So I'm just gonna pull this out there. Now it's not in the reference, but I'm gonna add a little bit of shadow in here because even the whites of your eyes are not white. So there's shadow in there. So I'm very lightly adding in some shade towards the top and the side, but leaving the middle still brighter. So a little bit of shadow around the edge. A little bit of shadow around the edge. Okay, we're in the home stretch now. So I've just redefined my tear duct, redefined the shadow inside the eye, the whites of the eye, I should say. Now what we're gonna do is a lid line. So this lid line up here is when you have your eyes open, there's this little flap of skin, I guess you could say, that's right above the eye, and it usually follows the shape of the eye. Now this one too, you guys, it is in the reference a harsh line, but I'm not gonna draw it super hard because if you were doing this as a nice portrait, if you have your line here, you would draw it really lightly just so you can see where it is. But then what I'd have you practice is it's dark in the middle, yes, but it comes out really soft. Really, really soft. So I'm not seeing that. That's way too harsh. You want something that's very soft. So I'm still not gonna draw mine really hard, even though the reference does, just because I want to really solidify these good habits in you guys. So I'm gonna go over it over and over, but I'm gonna kind of do little circular motions coming out of it just so it stays soft. Add a little bit of shadow. Come back in, fix anything last minute. Hopefully you guys can see okay. As we keep practicing these videos, I might have to up my game in the lighting department. I've decided that highlight shouldn't be as bright as that one, so I just filled that in. I'm gonna come around the edges. I'm going to just soften up the edge by adding a little bit of shadow just because I don't like it being just a harsh outline. Okay, I think I'm pretty happy with this, you guys, for a very simple eye. So this is my first attempt at teaching you guys a very easy eye. We're gonna be practicing a couple different features though on the face, starting with the eyes. But step one is how to do a very simple one, and we will get more complicated, I promise. But try this, and I want you guys to post your pictures. So show me what you guys did and let me know how it went. Thanks, guys. Bye.